The humid air clung to every wall of the small house in Quezon City as Marites folded the last of her dresses into the battered suitcase she had owned for 30 years. The metal latch had rusted from the coastal air, but she polished it every year with the same care she once gave her late husband's shoes. Now, it would carry the last pieces of her old life. The ceiling fan wobbled above her, its blades groaning as if trying to talk her out of it. But Marites didn't want to hear reason anymore. For 64 years she had lived for other people, her children, her grandchildren, the endless cycle of cooking, cleaning, and surviving. For once, she wanted to live for herself. Her neighbor Lorna leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed, eyes skeptical. 8 Marites, are you really doing this, selling everything for some man you met online? Marites smiled, though her lips trembled. He's not just some man, Lorna. His name's Peter. He's kind, he listens. He makes me laugh. On video call, sure, Lorna muttered. You don't even know if he's real. Marites zipped her suitcase and looked at the old family photos still hanging on the cracked walls. Her husband Ernesto, smiling beside their jeepney. Her children at their graduation. Her youngest, now living in Dubai, barely called anymore. I know what people think, she said softly. But for the first time in years, someone makes me feel seen. He said I deserve to be happy. Lorna sighed. I just hope this Peter isn't playing you. Marites didn't reply. She had thought about that too every night when she stared at her cracked phone screen, waiting for his messages. But Peter's voice was gentle, his stories full of warmth. He'd lost his wife years ago, he said, and wanted someone who understood loneliness. They'd talked for 9 months. He sent her pictures of his little house near Melbourne, a white picket fence, blooming roses, a dog named Charlie. He told her he'd build her a garden, that they'd drink coffee every morning by the sea. Sell your things, love, he had said one evening. You won't need them here. I'll take care of everything once you arrive. It sounded crazy, but when her children stopped returning her calls, when her pension barely covered rice and medicine, the idea of a new beginning glowed like a miracle. 2 weeks later, she sold her house, the jeepney, even her wedding ring. The total wasn't much, but enough for a one-way ticket and a few $100s left. The day of her flight, the Manila airport buzzed with Kausa families crying, travelers rushing, the smell of Jollibee fried chicken drifting through the air. Marites clutched her passport and the handwritten note Peter had sent with his address in Melbourne. See you soon, my love. Forever starts now. She boarded the plane with tears streaming down her cheeks. The sky over Australia stretched endless and blue when she arrived. The airport was sleek, efficient and nothing like the cramped chaos of home. She felt small, invisible among the crowd of travelers, her heart pounding as she passed through immigration. Peter had promised to meet her at the arrivals gate. She looked around, eyes darting across faces. No one held a sign, no familiar smile waited. She sat on her suitcase, nerves knotting in her stomach. Minutes passed, then an hour. She checked her phone and no message. Maybe he got stuck in traffic, she whispered to herself. Another hour passed. Her phone battery dropped to 10%. Still nothing. She called his number, but it went straight to voicemail. By sunset, the crowd had thinned. The janitor swept near her feet. The last taxi driver looked at her with pity. Miss, you need a ride? He asked. She showed him the note. Here, broken bar, this address. Can you take me there? He nodded, though his expression shifted when he saw the handwriting. That's far. You sure someone's waiting? Yes, she said, forcing a smile. The drive took 2 hours. The suburbs melted into countryside, rolling fields, distant trees, the sky turning gold. But when the taxi finally stopped, her stomach dropped. The address led to a vacant lot. The house number was painted on a half-rotted fence. No roses, no white picket fence, just weeds and silence. This can't be right, she whispered. The driver turned, concern softening his features. Maybe he moved, she nodded numbly. Maybe. He offered to take her back to the city, but she refused. She couldn't give up yet, not after everything. She dragged her suitcase to a nearby gas station, where the clerk let her charge her phone. She opened Facebook Messenger and scrolled. Peter's profile picture was gone, so were their messages. Account deactivated. For the first time, she felt the cold bite of reality. He was gone. She sat on the curb that night, clutching her suitcase as the wind cut through her thin cardigan. She thought of Lorna's words, of the warnings, of her children who wouldn't answer even if she called. A kind stranger, a woman named Clary, found her the next morning. She worked at a small diner nearby and offered Merrites coffee and a warm meal. "You all right, love?" Claire asked gently. Merrites forced a nod, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I came to meet someone, but a broken bar. He's not here." Claire frowned. "You got family here?" "Number." "Just him." Claire pursed her lips. "You've been scammed, haven't you?" The words pierced like a knife, but there was no denying it now. She had sold everything at her home, her memory asset for a man who never existed. For days, Claire let her stay in the diner's storage room. She helped Merrites report the fraud to the local police, though they said there was little they could do. The money trail led nowhere. The account was fake, the identity stolen from a retired teacher in Perth. Still, Claire refused to let her despair. "You're not alone anymore," she told her. "We'll figure something out." Merrites began helping around the diner, washing dishes, sweeping floors. At first, she did it out of gratitude, but soon she found comfort in the routine. The smell of coffee, the sound of laughter, the way customers smiled when she brought them plates of hot toast. It reminded her that kindness still existed. Months passed. She learned the bus routes, memorized the quiet streets, and even picked up a few Australian phrases that made Claire laugh. One day, while wiping tables, she overheard an old man humming a Tagalog song near the counter. She froze. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Are you Filipino?" The man turned and smiled. "Born in Cebu. Been here 30 years. His name was Ramon, a widower who owned a small construction company. They started talking every morning about adobo recipes, jeepns, the way rain smelled in the Philippines. He was gentle, patient, and never asked about her past until she was ready. When she finally told him everything, he didn't pity her. "You trusted too much," he said simply. "But that's not a weakness. That's love." For the first time since she'd arrived, she smiled without forcing it. Ramon began visiting her often, bringing mangoes from his backyard and small gifts that reminded her of home. He introduced her to his friends at the Filipino Community Center, where she met other immigrants who had their own stories of heartbreak and hope. One evening, they attended a karaoke night at the center. Someone handed Merrites the microphone, and though her voice trembled, she sang back at Pa, a song she hadn't sung since her husband died. When the last note faded, the crowd applauded. She saw Ramon smiling at her, eyes glistening. That night, as they walked home under the soft glow of streetlights, he said, "You gave up everything for love. Maybe now it's time love gives something back." She looked up at the stars scattered across the Australian sky, her heart lighter than it had been in years. By the end of that year, Merrites had saved enough to rent a small apartment near the diner. She grew herbs on the balcony and sent money back to her grandchildren. Her life was small, simply but real. Sometimes she thought of Peter not with anger, but with a strange sense of gratitude, because if not for that cruel deception, she might never have found this new life. 2 years later, she and Ramon opened a Filipino food stall together. They called it Bagang Simula, a new beginning. Locals came for the lumpia and stayed for her laughter. Tourists often asked about the name, and she'd smile mysteriously. "It's a long story," she'd say. On her 67th birthday, the community center threw her a surprise party. There were streamers, karaoke, and a cake shaped like the Philippine flag. Claire hugged her tight. "You've come a long way, Mama Tess," she whispered. Merrites looked around the crowded room at the friends she'd made, the laughter echoing through the hall, and felt tears prick her eyes. "I thought my story ended when I got on that plane," she said softly. But maybe it was just beginning. Late that night, after everyone had gone home, she sat on her balcony with Ramon, watching the city lights shimmer. "You know," he said, "some people might call you foolish for what you did." She chuckled. "Maybe I was. But if I hadn't taken that chance, I'd still be sitting alone in Kansas City, wondering what if." Ramon nodded. "Sometimes heartbreak brings you exactly where you're meant to be." She reached for his hand, their fingers intertwining in quiet understanding. As dawn broke, a gentle breeze rustled through the potted basil and mint. For the first time in her life, Merrites didn't feel like she had to chase love or beg for it. It had found here unexpectedly, imperfectly, but honestly. And that was enough. The woman who had once sold everything for a dream that vanished had built something better from the ashes, a life filled with laughter, friendship, and peace. The past no longer haunted her, it had simply become the road that led her home. And when people in the community asked how she ended up in Australia, she would only smile and say, "Because real love always finds a way, even through the wrong door." The story of Merrites, the Filipina grandmother who sold everything to meet her online lover, became something of a legend in the Filipino community in Melbourne. Some whispered it as a cautionary tale, others as proof of resilience. But for Merrites herself, it was simply life, messy, painful, beautiful. A journey that began in heartbreak and ended in belonging. And every morning, as she stood outside her food stall handing plates of steaming panna to customers, she whispered a quiet prayer to the wind. "Salamat, Peter, a broken bar for disappearing." "Because that's how I found myself." The wind carried her words across the streets, soft as a lullaby. Somewhere between memory and hope, the old wound finally closed, and Merrites, a grandmother, dreamer, survivor, kept smiling beneath the Australian sun, where love had finally come home.